One of the more fun things that you can do in the GameMaker room editor is set up a system for auto-tiling. And auto-tiling allows you to create a set of tiles, a collection of tiles that automatically stitch themselves together. And this allows you to create things like terrain boundaries and sometimes other things like walls or less organic, more human made constructions like streets and roads and that kind of thing, without really having to individually place every single tile in the GameMaker room editor yourself one by one. And that is a huge time saver, and I absolutely love that this exists. This is not a thing that is exclusive to GameMaker. This is a thing that generally most game engines in the modern day are able to do. But one thing that GameMaker does not currently at present have the ability to do is actually do something like this at runtime. So while your game is running, this means that if you want to do something like procedural generation or otherwise allowing the player to create terrain themselves, this can be a little bit difficult because you don't have a way built into GameMaker to do this at runtime. Over the next couple of videos, we are going to talk about implementing auto-tiling for yourself in GameMaker. Hello, all the crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and over the course of the next couple of videos, I am going to get way too deep into creating auto-tile systems in GameMaker. So, if you do happen to be, for some reason, watching this video in association with an engine that is not GameMaker, everything that I talk about in here should still work because like 95% of what we are going to do is going to be math. The only GameMaker specific stuff in this video that I'm going to be talking about is actually like going to be reading and writing actual tile data. But if you want to take something like this outside of GameMaker and create your own like engine agnostic auto tiling system, then it shouldn't be too hard to do from what we're going to see in this video. The other thing I should probably say before we get started is that there's going to be like 3 or 4 different auto tiling strategies that I'm going to discuss over the course of the next couple of videos. So, if what you see in this video is not exactly what you're looking for, stick around. Hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, we should go over more thoroughly whatever you happen to be looking for. So, let's see. I've got in the sample project a couple of tile systems. I've got this just like tile template, which I've just set up in the room editor here. And this is going to be just an array of tiles. You can think of these as like tiles in a Boolean state of occupied or not occupied. And I've gone and like filled them in like this. I've gone and created a tile set in GameMaker just so that I can use like this in the room editor. No big deal. I've also gone and created this 16 tile auto tile pattern, which has various different slices for things such as tiles in corner pieces, tiles in edge pieces, tiles in like peninsula pieces, and so on and so forth. You can think of this as a template that you can follow if you'd like, where the red border is going to be the like the boundary of the tile, and the white interior is going to be the part of the auto tile system that sort of just flows together. And I have also gone ahead and created a GameMaker tile set for that. And just for GameMaker reasons, because the first tile in a tile set is the designated empty tile, there is an empty chunk of this tile. So this is just blank space. It's not going to be part of the game, but it does need to be part of the tile set if you want it to work properly in GameMaker. Let's see. What else do I have? I don't have anything else in this project so far, so I'm just going to go and create myself a room. And, well, I already have a room. I'm going to go and create myself an object, and I'm going to put the object in the room. Let me just go and drag this into here. It can just sit off on the side, doesn't have to do anything. It's just going to take care of some stuff in the background. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go add a create event to this object, and I'm going to zoom in because the default text size in the code editor is not really big enough if you're recording your screen. The first thing I'm going to do is just grab a reference to this tiles_template tile layer in the GameMaker room editor, and we are going to use this as the base that we're going to start off with. So I can do that in GameMaker by saying something like tilemap template equals layer tile map get ID. Syntax highlighting is not working in GameMaker today. That's incredible. Tiles_template is the name of the layer. Let me just go and like force GameMaker to reanalyze project, and that didn't do it either. GameMaker, I absolutely love it when syntax highlighting just breaks for absolutely no reason. Alright, I restarted the program, and now the coloring for function names and stuff is back, so that's great. So this is a reference to our tile map. We can do things like iterate over it and see what values are at each cell in the tile map. So now that we're here, let's go and do that. I can say var w is going to be tile map get width, tile map template. I can say var h equals tile map get height, tile map template. And we are going to want to go over the tile map a couple of times for what we're doing, so we might as well just fetch those values now and get it over with. Before I actually do anything with individual tiles, I am going to go and say tile info equals ds grid creates width and height. So I'm just going to create a ds grid, which is going to be basically just a big old 2D array. You can use actual arrays for this. I'm not going to because I'm lazy. By all means, instead of using a ds grid for this, you can use a 2D array if you'd like. We are going to ds grid clear tile info. I'm going to initialize this all to 0. I think it will be initialized to 0 when you create it, but I'm just going to make sure. And now I'm going to, for I equals 0, I is less than width, I plus plus, and inside that for var j equals 0, j is less than height, j plus plus. We are going to iterate over the tile map for every cell in the tile map. I'm not yet going to be doing any auto-tiling logic, but I will say var tile data here equals tile map get, tile map template. X cell is going to be I, Y cell is going to be J. So we're going to fetch the tile data at each location in the tile map, and I can say if tile gets empty, tile data here, tile info ds grid index I and J is going to be 0, else tile info index I and J is going to be 1. And I suppose initializing this to 0 is going to be a little bit redundant now because we are doing that up here. I could also cut out the unnecessary bits and just say if not tile get empty, tile info index ij is going to be 1. All right, so we are just going to stick a little literal bit of data inside this ds grid for each cell, and it's going to represent whether the cell is occupied or not. And if I want to go and see this visually, I can go add a little draw event to this here object1, and I can say I equals 0, I is less than ds grid with tile info I plus plus. We can do the same thing, a double nested loop I, J, ds grid height, J++, and I can say draw text at I, and I want this to be like for each cell spaced out, and the cell size in the tile map for each tile is 32 by 32, so I'm gonna say I times 32 plus 16 to put it in the center, J times 32 plus 16 to put it in the center of the cell. And the string that we're going to draw is going to be tile info index I and J. And just because I think I'd like this to not be using the default GameMaker font, which is, like, definitively hideous, I'm going to go and X out of that. I will draw set font. I'll use this font that I defined up here, fnt_game. Some lovely Comic Sans. We can also draw set color C_red just to make it a little easier to read, and for good measure, H align FA center. Draw set V align FA middle, and that's going to actually center the text in the cell. And this is going to draw for each cell a 1 if it's occupied by something with the tile map, and a 0 if it's not. So we haven't actually done anything here besides just displaying some information relating to the tile map on the screen. And now we're actually going to get to the auto-tiling business, and we are going to look over, for each cell in the tile map, we're going to look over it, and we're going to check its neighbors, and we're going to see what the contents of its neighbors are. And based on the contents of each cell's neighbors, we are going to change the actual tile index of the tile that's on the screen. And we're actually going to create a new tile map for this so that I can nicely and easily, like, flip back and forth between them so that you can, like, before and after them. Anyway, an example of what we're going to be looking at here. So for the tile in this corner where my mouse cursor is, it has a neighboring tile on the right and on the bottom, and the tile above it and to the left are empty. So we're going to just check each of the 4 adjacent neighbors of each tile. And if a tile like this has a neighbor on the right and on the bottom, but not on the top and on the left, then we're going to give it what I'm going to designate as a northwest facing corner piece like this. If a tile, for example, in the middle here has neighbors in all 4 cardinal directions, so left, right, top, and bottom, then it is going to get one of the filled tile indices. If a tile, and I don't have one in this demonstration right here, has a where am I going to go? I'm going to select this. If it has a neighbor to the left and the right, it's going to get a straightaway, like a horizontal or a vertical straightaway tile piece. If a tile has a neighbor to just one side, it's going to get a peninsula piece. If a tile has no neighbors, it's going to get one of the island pieces. And we can look at the like these white and red squares that I created as a tile set as a sort of as a guide for this. All right, so there's going to be an easy way and a hard way to do this, and I'm going to do it the hard way first because I want to show why the easy way is better. So let me get rid of this little bit over here for now. Actually, I will not. I will keep the tile get empty bit because we're just going to ignore tiles that are actually empty. We're not going to check empty tiles for their neighbors. We're just going to check filled tiles for their neighbors. So I'm now going to fetch each tile's neighbors, so to its left, right, top, and bottom, and I can say tile data n for north is going to be. I am going to use cardinal directions here instead of top, bottom, left, and right, because I know that if I try to use left and right, I'm going to mix up left and right about 50% of the time. But tile data to the north is going to be tilemap get tilemap template I on the horizontal axis and j-1 on the vertical axis. I'm just going to clone that a couple times. Tile data south is going to be I and j+1. Tile data to the east is going to be I+1 and j. And tile data to the west is going to be I-1 and j. And that is going to be our 4 cardinal directions. And from here, we can start enumerating every single combination of north, south, east, and west. So I realized that the tilemap get function is going to return, like, a whole bunch of data about the tile at any given index in the tilemap, and it's not just going to be whether or not the tile is empty like we care about here. It's also going to be things like what index in the tile sets the tile is going to use, things like whether or not the tile is flipped or rotated, because they're allowed to do that in GameMaker. And all I actually care about is whether or not it's empty, so I think I'm going to just cut out the middleman to save myself some typing later. And I'm going to say tile data north, south, east, and west is going to be equal to not tile get empty, and we're just gonna, this is now just going to be a boolean true or false, which represents whether or not we have a neighbor in each of the cardinal directions, because that is all I care about. And now we can start enumerating all the possible combinations for each of the possible combinations of neighbors. And if this sounds like it's going to get boring real fast, you would be correct. So let's get this underway. I'm going to say if tile data north and tile data south and tile data east and tile data west. So if a tile has neighbors in all 4 cardinal directions, we are going to assign that this tile at the end, which is going to be index 16, and I'm going to open this up in the GameMaker sprite editor, and I'm going to let's say I'm gonna just draw like a blue dot in the middle of this one so that I can like see that I already did that one. Tile info index I and j is gonna equal 16. And that's going to be our tile with neighbors on all sides. Next, and I'm just going to go down the line here. So the next one has a border to the north, which means that there are neighbors to the east, west, and south. And I can say else if tile data to the south, the east, and the west. We can say tile info index ij is going to be 15. And continuing on down the line, this has a border to the west, so north, south, and east are the neighbors. And I'm just going to copy that, paste that. I want north, south, and east, which is going to be this combination. Tile info is going to be 15. Are we getting a little bit exhausted by this yet? I'm probably going to speed up the video so that you'll at least have the entertainment value of hearing me speaking in a very squeaky voice. Anyway, next we have a corner piece which is facing northwest, so we have neighbors to the south and to the east. I want to copy this, I want to paste it, and I want to say tile data to the south and east, not north. Tile info index 14. Next, this is going to be a border to the east, so I have north, west, and south. So let me just grab one of these, and I can say tile data west, south, and north. I'm just going to get rid of that, change that. That's going to be index 12. This will start to go a little bit faster as we get towards the beginning, because tiles will in general have fewer neighbors towards the beginning. Moving on, so this one is going to have neighbors to the west and south. I can fill this in to the south and to the west. That's going to be tile index 11. This is going to be a straightaway, so an isthmus, I guess, if we're using geography terms here. There's going to be neighbors to the north and south. And I'm just going to say tile data south and tile data north is going to give us index 10. This is a peninsula. There's only going to be a neighbor to the south, nowhere else. That is going to give us index 9. This one has neighbors to the, let me count this up, to the north, east, and west, not to the south. What do I want? North, east, and west. So that's going to be east and tile data west, like that. This is going to be tile info index 8. This is another isthmus. We have neighbors to the east and west, not to the north or south. And I can just copy that, get rid of the one of the neighbors. This is going to be tile index 7. Elbow piece facing southwest, so we have north and east. How do I want to... I'm trying to think of what would be the most efficient way to copy and paste so that I don't have to edit more than one value if I don't have to when I'm doing this. Anyway, that's going to be tile index 6. Another peninsula, we only have a neighbor to the east. I'm just going to copy the last line and get rid of the second neighbor. That's going to be tile index 5. What's next? This is southeast, so we have neighbors to the north and west. What index is that going to be? 4. We're almost there. This is a peninsula facing east, so we only have a neighbor to the west. We can just assign that index 3. This is a peninsula facing south, so we only have a neighbor to the north. And we can say that's going to be index 2. And I believe there's just one more. This is the island, so this has no neighbors at all. So instead of saying if anything, I can just say at the bottom of this if-else tree, one final condition for else. That is going to be tile index 1. All right. So that was a whole huge ordeal. I'm just gonna go and erase those blue dots because I don't actually want to see them on the final image. And now let's actually look at our handiwork. So that is a lot of code. That is a lot of copying and pasting, which I did and I would like to not have to do. So let's come over here and have a look at our handiwork. So this looks like utter nonsense right now. If I run the game, we're not going to see any auto tiling. We haven't actually created any tile sets, but we have set up a basically a tile index for each one of these tiles that we're looking at, and we can see these interior tiles here have index 16, and for example, this island here has an index 1. The border pieces have different tile indices, and that is definitely a step in the right direction. So with that in hand, let's go and actually create ourselves a new tile map so that we can actually start taking these tiles that we were looking at for the last couple minutes and putting them into a tile map and actually seeing them stitched together. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a new tile map in GameMaker by saying, let's say, local variable new layer equals layer create. The depth, I don't really care what depth we're going to create it at because I am going to draw it manually. And let's say tile map generated is going to equal layer tile map create on that new layer. And it's going to have a an X position in the room, basically an X offset. I'm just going to set that to 0, 0. The tile set that we're going to use is going to be this ts_tile basic tile set, which just has those outline pieces. The width is going to be the width of the tile set, and the height is going to be the height of the old tile set because we want it to be the exact same size. I'm going to say layer set visible new layer, and I'm gonna set that to false because I do want to only draw this tile map on this layer when I like hit a spacebar so that we can like flip between them. And next I'm going to need to actually like iterate over this tile info grid and actually put these tile indices in the tile map. So to do that, I'm going to go and create a second double for loop, which is going to iterate over the tile grid again. And you could squish these together into a single grid, but I want to show these steps like in order, so I'm gonna keep them separated. So I will say again, our tile data here is going to be tile map get the tile map generated index I and j, and I want to say this is going to be like entirely zero data when you create a new tile set, but I'm not entirely sure. To set a tile index into a blob of tile data, we are going to need to use the tile set index function with the tile data here. And the index of the tile that we're going to set is going to just be the value that is inside the tile info ds grid over here, the 2D array. And we are going to just set the index that corresponds to a particular cell in the tile map to that individual bit of tile data. And I think I can close this now. Because of the way that this tile data works, this is actually not like an object or a struct or anything like that. This is actually just an integer value which stores the tile index and different other tile properties as different bits in the integer. So if I want to modify anything about it, I actually have to take the return value of tile set index and I have to reassign it to the variable like this. And to put that back into the tile set, I can say tile map set the tile map generated tile data here at position X, or at position I and J, and that is going to set our tile data index. And now, if I were to go and, let's say if you hold the space bar, we are going to draw tile map generated at position 0, 0 in the room. And now when I run the game, we are going to have, if I hit the spacebar, if I did everything correctly. Okay, great. It looks like I did everything correctly. We now have a series of tiles which are now stitched together in different ways based on what their neighbors are doing. The corner pieces are appropriately set to corner tiles. The interior is appropriately set to the borderless interior tile. The various edges are appropriately set to the various edge tiles. I think I'm using every single... I don't think I'm using every single tile combination in here yet. If I go and just, like, draw a couple more patterns in this room editor, I can just verify that I did everything correctly. Alright, that looks correct. So with this, having done this, you could, if you wanted to, leave it here, and you could say that you have created a basic auto tile set, which is going to take 16 different tiles and stitch them together based on what their neighbors are doing. However, in addition to wanting to discuss different, like, methods of tiling different types of tiles together in future videos, I think pretty much anyone who has ever had to maintain code in the past is going to look at this big ol' if-else tree that I wrote in the middle of the video and say, this looks awful. This looks like something that if I have to make a change, if there's a bug in here, it's going to be really difficult to track down because, like, you look at this and your eyes just start to automatically cross themselves. So, what if there is a better way of doing this? So, last week, I made a video on, bitwise operations and doing things to modify individual bits, not, in fact, unlike how the tile data blobs are, like, a single, I think, 64-bit integer in GameMaker, which, like, concatenate a bunch of information together. However, instead of dealing with actual numbers here, we are going to want to take the state of the neighbors of each of these tiles, and each tile has 4 neighbors to the north, south, east, and west. Or 4 adjacent neighbors, I should say. It's got, additionally, 4 diagonal neighbors, but we don't care about those today. And if you represented each of the cardinal directions as a different bit in a value, in a bit field, or in a mask. And I'm actually going to rearrange these slightly so that they're slightly more convenient. I'm going to say the order that I'm going to check is going to be north, west, east, and south. And we'll see why I'm putting them in this order in a minute. There's not like a fundamental computing reason that this has to be in this order, but I do want it to align with the order in which I defined these tiles over here, and we'll get to that in a minute. But if I just went and deleted all of this hard work that we just did, so let me go and declare another little local variable, and we're just going to call that the mask, and we're going to set that to 0. And I'm going to say if tile data to the north is true, then the mask is going to bitwise or equal the binary literal for 0b0001. So if you have a neighbor to the north, we are going to set the lowest bit in this value in this mask to 1. If tile data to the west is true, then mask bitwise or equals 0b00. I need 0b0010, so we're going to set the second bit in this value to 1. We can continue. I can say if tile mask to the east is true, then we can set the third bit like this. And lastly, if tile data to the south is true, we can set the fourth bit in this mask to that value. And then we can go and set tile info index I and j to that mask value, and we can call it a day. Actually, we can't call it a day because GameMaker tile maps have like a 1 tile offset. I'm going to add 1 to that. We'll get back to that later. So why would we do this? What was the point of all this? So there are 4 different values here. There are 4 different like binary true or false values here, and they are all independent of each other, and we can squish them together into a single value. If we were to assume that each of the cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, were to occupy a different bit in this number. And we have essentially created a unique ID for each possible combination of neighbors, for each of the 16 possible combinations of neighbors. And since each of the possible combination of neighbors is uniquely identifiable, if you create your pattern of autotiles in such a way that the tile at each index corresponds to the value in this mask for a certain combination of neighbors, then all you have to do is just logical OR a bunch of numbers together, and you can just use that as the tile index. And again, we are adding 1 here because tile sets in GameMaker do have a designated empty tile at the beginning, which does mean that we have a bunch of lovely like off by 1 errors if we were to just leave it alone without the +1 there. If you're doing this in something that is not GameMaker, you might or might not have that like particular constraint in your tile set the way that you set up your tile sets, so you can feel free to ignore that if it's not relevant to you. Anyway, if we were to step through this 1 by 1, so if there is, well, firstly, if a tile has no neighbors, then the mask is just going to stay 0 because none of these conditions are ever going to fire, and a mask of 0, when you do or don't account for the +1, is going to correspond to this island tile here, which doesn't have any neighbors. If you were to say that you only have a neighbor to the north, then only this bit is going to be set, only the first bit is going to be set. This number here is going to be interpreted as a value of 1, again, ignoring the +1, and that is going to correspond to the next tile in this sequence. If you only have a neighbor to the west, the second bit is going to be set. That is going to correspond to a tile value of 2. And it'll be easier to see if I like draw the grid lines, show you the grid lines here. This peninsula piece is going to only have a neighbor to the west, and it is not going to have any other neighbors. If you have a neighbor to both the north and the west, that is going to set both of the lower 2 bits, which is going to be a value of 3, and so on down the line. And now if I were to run the game, we can see that this is going to work. We can see that the indices in each cell are the same as they were before when we hard-coded the whole thing. And if I hit the spacebar, we have all of the edge pieces, all of the corner pieces, all of the interior pieces tiling together. And this just works. And it is now like half the amount of code that it was when we started. So this is what I'm going to call the canonical version of the 16-tile autotile system. I hope writing the whole thing out the long way like I did initially does illustrate like why you would want to do the binary version, why you would want to use the binary masks, because it I think it definitely helps to enumerate them in order, and like once you see that god awful if else tree, you definitely probably immediately thought, like, is there an easier way to do this? And yes, and it's lovely because I think this is a very cool computer science trick. Anyway, next time there's a couple different systems of autotiles that I'd like to talk about. I'm not entirely sure which one I want to do next, but we will talk about more autotiling things in another video. Until then, my name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. If you want the code for this, look for the GitHub repository down in the description of this video. I like to post videos on all kinds of other stuff you can do in GameMaker, so if anything like this appeals to you, feel free to subscribe. I also have a Patreon, so if you'd like to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places, and if you felt like pledging, I definitely would appreciate it. These videos do take quite a bit of time to make. You should all go check out Wizarducks and the Lost Hat, which is one of the games that I like to work on when I'm not doing YouTube stuff. Link to the Steam page can be found down below. I hope you all found this useful, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Zenjamin, Zach Robinson, Squarecrow, Spy Games, Pixelated Pope, Paradox, Nykotic, Manta Ray, GameMaker, GameArt Indie, Edward Holt, DJ Gibbles, Bokeh Dev, and Argo the Knot for supporting these videos. If you want to join their ranks and contribute to the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.